Pretty simple amendment. It provides us with the chance to vote on the biggest tax cut in this chamber since the car tax back in 1998. And it's a $300 million tax cut. It's concentrated in a few counties where some of the legislators wish they didn't have it. And I'm basing that on the fact that, they don't like these kinds of taxes, and this is certainly a chance for everybody on both sides of the aisle to appeal to their bases. And
Mr. President, I would ask if the gentleman would yield for a question.
For what purpose does the senator rise?
I ask whether the gentleman would yield for a question.
Well, the senior senator
when I finish.
When he's finished, he will yield. The senator has the floor.
Certainly, I'd find it hard to believe that anybody could vote against a tax cut like this. And I know that the senator from Harrisonburg thinks that this is retaliatory. I'm trying to help my friends out, and I don't view it that way. And I think that, people want tax relief, and by God, we're giving it to them.
Thank you, Senator.
Now I'll yield for questions.
The senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
I would ask the gentleman, what exactly was it that the gentleman said he's giving to us?
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
I said I'm helping out all of my friends, and I consider you all over there my friends, and over here my friends.
Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask the gentleman whether the citizens of Fairfax County are not among his friends.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Definitely, they are among my friends and some of my strongest supporters, as well as the people from the west end of the city, great city of Alexandria.
The senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask the gentleman further whether it was perhaps a mistake and an oversight that you weren't extending that benefit to your friends in Fairfax and the west side of Alexandria as well.
Senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, the people that represent them didn't come to me and ask me for that kind of a help, so that's why I didn't include them in.
Mr. President, I would ask...
Let's slow down a little bit. Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask the gentleman which people from the city of Harrisonburg came and asked him for this help.
Senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
It appeared to me, and sometimes, Mr. President, I do make a mistake, but it would appear to me that their elected representative is asking me for help.
Mr. President.
Senator from Harrisonburg.
And Mr. President, I hope I haven't mistook his intentions by that votes up there on the board.
Slow down. Let's make comments in response to the invitation of the chair.
Mr. President.
From Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
A further question. I would ask the gentleman whether he considered the vote on House Bill 1451, the previous bill, part of that invitation that we extended.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, to be honest, Mr. President, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that. I drew this up based on all the other votes.
Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Well, I would ask that in light of the vote on House Bill 1451, whether perhaps it was an oversight not to include Henry County perhaps on this list.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, I can't keep, track of who's doing what. I just had a consistent, pattern from a group of people in here, and I followed that. And next year, we can deal with Henry County.
The senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would ask the gentleman whether the gentleman checked with the localities to find out the extent to which they may have issued bonds that are dependent upon or which they are legally obligated to continue to collect these revenues in order to avoid default upon those obligations.
The senior senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, Mr. President, I would assume that they're speaking through their legislators, Mr. President, and that their legislators don't want other people to have it, and I just made the assumption they didn't want themselves to have it, and I'm trying to help them out, sir. That's all I'm trying to do. Just be helpful.
Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, apparently my question was not very well put, and I would try to do a better job of asking that question again the second time around. And I would ask the gentleman whether he checked to find out whether some of these jurisdictions that he's listed in here have issued and current outstanding bonded indebtedness upon which they are obligated to continue to collect these funds. Take, for example, Virginia Beach. I would ask the gentleman whether he made those inquiries.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, you know, Mr. President, I would assume that they elect responsible people who know what their situation is and do the responsible voting up there, and I went strictly on that basis.
Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would suggest that perhaps my ability to phrase a question is hopelessly deficient, so I will abandon that line of question, and I would ask the gentleman whether perhaps he had checked with Moody's or Standards & Poor's as to how they would view the adoption of this amendment and a bill with this amendment placed upon it.
Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
Well, you know, Mr. President, I didn't get a chance to check with them, and I certainly would ask the senator from Harrisonburg if he bothered to check with some of the senators from other areas that needed this, the transient occupancy tax, perhaps to keep their public schools open and provide health and human services and public safety, if he checked with them before he voted against their transient occupancy tax.
I yield.
Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
I yield.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, speaking to the bill. Mr. President, members of the Senate, now we have expended 15 minutes today. We have expended probably significantly more time than this in at least my colleagues on the opposite side of the aisle's caucus addressing this issue. And it appears that I owe the senior senator from Fairfax an apology, and I want to extend that apology to him. I know that for the past 7 or 8 years, we have routinely had bills of this nature, transient occupancy tax extensions that have come up, and for the past 7 or 8 years, there have been 4 or 5 or 6 votes that have been cast in opposition to the extension of new transient occupancy tax extensions. And apparently when last week or 2 weeks ago there were 3 or 4 votes cast in opposition to that, it caused the senior senator from Fairfax County perhaps a sprain in his neck as he wheeled to the left to find out who had the temerity to cast such a vote. And I would, Mr. President, remind the members of this body that, yes, we already had this discussion earlier in this session, that there was a day, indeed, in which Virginia was governed by one-party rule, and we had a day in which the Senate of Virginia was governed with an iron fist, in which party discipline was chamber discipline, because there was only one party that was represented in the chamber of the Senate of Virginia. And when anybody back in the day dared to dissent on a vote, it was a monumental breach in party discipline. Mr. President, members of the Senate, we have fortunately emerged beyond the point at which this chamber is dominated by one party. And frankly, that is one of the benefits of a representative democracy, is that we are able to come here and agree to disagree on some issues. And I would respectfully submit that one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about my service in the Senate has been the collegial atmosphere and the ability to smile and disagree and walk out of here and maybe break bread and have a sandwich with one another afterwards. And to the extent that I have upset the apple cart by failing to display the kind of chamber discipline that existed back in the day, I apologize to the members of the body, but I will not apologize for standing up and failing to vote for an extension of a tax that did not exist before, or that was not granted to that extent before we cast those votes. Now, tempted as I am to support this bill, it is a mighty temptation to do that in order to provide the citizens of my district and other districts with a cut in their taxes. However, what the senator is trying to do is actually just flat irresponsible. I mean, we have issued hundreds of millions of dollars of bonded instruments on the basis of the revenue that's been generated, and anybody understands that it places these jurisdictions, maybe not mine, but others, in a position in which they would be in default immediately upon the passage of this piece of legislation. And I don't want to stand here and be hypocritical. I want to make sure that the gentleman from senior senator from Fairfax understands that if he wants to accept this invitation and extend these benefits to the citizens of my county or other counties represented by folks who are willing to stand strong for the taxpayers of the Commonwealth of Virginia, maybe there are some appropriate ways that I could suggest that maybe the senior senator from Fairfax might entertain in future days and maybe even in future sessions. For example, I would suggest that maybe next year an amendment in the nature of exempting the good citizens of the city of Harrisonburg from the individual income tax, perhaps, would be a welcome development. Or perhaps the corporate income tax would be a welcome development. Or perhaps the sales tax would be a welcome development. Oh, and heaven forbid, maybe even the gas tax or maybe even the Apple excise tax. I could continue to go on, Mr. President, but I won't. I think that I thank the gentleman for his thoughtfulness. I thank the gentleman for his creativity. And I certainly hope that it's extended in all seriousness, and that we can continue to work cooperatively to look for ways that we can relieve the good people of the Commonwealth of Virginia of the burden of unwanted additional taxes. And perhaps this isn't the best way, but every year I come to this General Assembly session with a handful of good ideas for reducing the tax burden on the citizens of the Commonwealth, from Pennington Gap all the way to Chincoteague and Cape Charles, Virginia. And I certainly hope that in the spirit of collegiality that the senior senator from Fairfax and I might be able to have a sandwich back here after session today and maybe talk about some ways that we can extend that tax relief to the good citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, maybe through the budget conference. Or maybe next year we can get back together and extend that relief. Mr. President, thank you for recognizing me, and I would urge the members to vote responsibly on this matter.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator McWaters.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, my colleagues in the Senate and senior senator from Fairfax. That was not a slip. Senior senator from Fairfax. I don't know why I wade into these things, Mr. President. I think it's because the fair city of Virginia Beach was brought up in this great debate. Count me guilty, Mr. President. Count me guilty for voting against taxes on businesses and the citizens of this Commonwealth. Sometime around my freshman year in high school, and yes, Senator Colgan had not yet joined the Senate at that time, the good statesmen and stateswomen of this body felt a very specific reason and defined needs to put into the Virginia Code the occupancy tax. It began at 2%, and it was specifically for counties. And why they did not allow these counties to increase beyond 2% can only be imagined. Cities, of course, such as Virginia Beach, have always been allowed to apply these taxes as they felt necessary for very specific projects. And taxed they have, Mr. President. Combined taxes in some areas of the state are as high as 15% all in. So I do agree with the senior senator that taxes are too high. And I would love to also work with him during the summer to look at meaningful specific tax reductions for our fair city, specifically the machine tool tax. the B-poll tax, the business professional occupation tax, and perhaps even the corporate income tax, all of which will make Virginia a stronger and more competitive growing market, which will grow revenues that can then fund vital core services such as education, Medicaid, and transportation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm one of those that voted for the transient occupancy tax. And let me tell you why. I had the opportunity this year to travel to San Diego, Chicago, West Virginia, New York. And you know what? I paid my transient occupancy taxes, or whatever they call it in those various cities. They got their nickel out of me to help run New York, to help run Chicago, to help run West Virginia, to help run San Diego. God knows they need it out there. I just think this is one of these taxes that we need to look at very carefully. This is people coming into Virginia, be it Northern Virginia, and they get their fair share of everybody coming in. At Virginia Beach, we get them from all over the country, indeed all over the world, to come to visit our resort city. The Triangle up in Williamsburg and Jamestown and Busch Gardens and all of those folks, all these things. This is a tax right now that, with this particular floor amendment, I don't want to focus on the bill, I want to focus on the floor amendment, singles out certain localities, certain jurisdictions, and we all know why. We all know what's going on here. But you have to understand, at Virginia Beach, we have floated a number of bonds on this for our oceanfront improvement. For those that haven't had the opportunity, we invite you down to come visit Virginia Beach and see what a beautiful oceanfront we have right now and the amount of upgrades we put in here based on not taxpayers that I represent, but taxpayers who come in from out of the state to help improve our entire community. And I'm one who put in the bill, and I believe it passes Senate 40-0, suggesting that perhaps we put tolls up at the borders. Because certainly when I drive to Boston, I get that opportunity to pay Maryland their tribute, Delaware their tribute, New Jersey their tribute, New York, if I have any money left, I might be able to get through New York and to continue on to the New England and that type of thing. And it's an opportunity for those that use our highways here to actually help pay for our highways in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so to go on from this is an opportunity, and not a tax burden on my constituents. This is an opportunity to tax those that would come visit us to help improve our communities where we live in and not be a burden to our taxpayers here in the Commonwealth. And my constituents travel just as much as I do, and they pay these taxes all over the country. And so none of us like taxes. None of us like to pay taxes. All of us would like to see taxes reduced, but this is one of these opportunities. So I would, although we all know why this floor amendment's out here, and we all know the purpose of it, I would ask you to defeat this floor amendment and move forward, because I'm afraid of the big signal that we'll send to the bond markets that we kind of willy-nilly do this kind of stuff. And those that actually issue us bonds and decide our credit ratings in this Commonwealth are going to go, are they willing to do this? What's next? And why should we give them the great AAA credit bond rating that we all cherish throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. The senator from Chesterfield, Senator Martin.
Mr. President, speaking in opposition to the floor amendment and wishing I could do otherwise. Mr. President, if it was a genuine proposal to cut taxes as stated, I'd agree, but it's not. I happen to sit close enough to the majority leader to hear the offhanded remarks that help me to understand otherwise. And if the senior senator from Fairfax proposal was to oppose the adoption of these taxes as new taxes, I would also join him in that effort. But the fact is, Mr. President, that in this particular case, we're talking about revenue sources that are, in fact, already obligated to support existing bonds. And so I would encourage you to reject that. There's no inconsistency in this whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I do appreciate the majority leader helping to point me out as being one of those that consistently vote against these tax increases and new taxes, and my constituents will be happy to hear of that designation. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw.
No one else desires to speak. First, let me say in response to the senator from Harrisonburg, and he talked about us getting together, and that's fine, because I do consider, the senator a good friend. We may disagree. He did give me a pretty good idea. He brought up about exempting Harrisonburg from the sales tax, or some of the sales tax, and I'm sure if he comes to me next year, or Senator Colgan or Senator Norman, and wants to be exempted, say, from 2%, say their sales tax in his Senate district be 3%, I'd be glad to go along with it. Of course, they wouldn't get that 1% for public schools and that 1% for running the governments, but they would have a 3% sales tax as opposed to the rest of the state being 5%. Might have to close a few schools, but, you know, they still have a low sales tax, and I'd be glad to accommodate them, and I'd be doing it with a smile. You know, because I consider everybody involved in this my friends, over here and over there. And there's not a one of you I wouldn't be willing to go have a drink with, although not minute after minute. So I would hope that you all would support this amendment and give the people in some of the areas of this state $300 million worth of tax cuts, because that's what the General Assembly is supposed to be about, making life easy and relieving people of taxes. One other thing, he mentioned about this being a tax on his constituents. As correctly pointed out by the senior senator from Virginia Beach, and I would note to the junior senator, I didn't say senior senator, senior citizen from Virginia Beach. I said senior, he's a senior. So this tax, about 75 to 80% of it, if not more, is paid by out-of-state people. Virginians don't pay this tax. This is, as correctly noted by Senator Wagner, is paid virtually all by out-of-state people. So anyway, Mr. President, I mean, this is offered up in friendship, and I would hope that there's no hard feelings anywhere, and I would hope that everybody would support this amendment. Thank you, Mr.
Senator.
President.
The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is agreed to.
Ayes and nays.
There being at least 8 hands, there will be a recorded vote. The question is, shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Opposed, no. I'm sorry, we'll record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 24, noes 15.
Ayes 24, noes 15. The floor amendment is agreed to. The senator from Prince William, Senator Colgan.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass. It's already been explained.
Having previously been explained and explained and explained, the question is, shall the bill pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes. Senator from Harrisonburg, Senator Obenshain.
Mr. President, I would make a substitute motion that the bill be referred to the Finance Committee, given its bond implication.
Thank you, Senator. The primary motion is that the bill pass. There is a substitute motion that the bill be recommitted to the Committee on Finance. The vote is on the substitute motion. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. There being at least 8 hands, there will be a recorded vote. No. The question is, shall the bill be recommitted to the Committee on Finance? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 14, noes 25.
Ayes 14, noes 25. The motion is defeated. The primary motion remaining on the floor is, shall the bill pass?
Mr. President.
Senator from Powhatan, Senator Watkins.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I guess we've had a little fun with this. But we are dealing with something that's very serious with regard to the welfare in particular of the jurisdictions that are listed here. I'm concerned that we would, in a cavalier manner, go about legislating like this. I recognize the concerns as expressed by the senior senator from Fairfax, but I also recognize the rights of each of us as individual members of the Senate to cast dissenting votes. And I don't know how you collectively weigh all that session to session. But if we go down this path, if we go down this path, who's next? What's next? I would be very reluctant. And here's someone I vote for most of these because of what the senior senator from Virginia Beach said and what others it is, and what the senior senator from Fairfax said. There's a dependency that is placed on monetary systems in order to provide everything